Hello, everyone. This is Tom Fox, and I'd like to welcome you to 12 O'Clock High, a podcast on business leadership. In this podcast series, Richard Lummis and I take a look at business leadership from a variety of topics. First, a word from our sponsor. As I have expanded my podcast realm, creating the first podcast network in compliance, aptly named the Compliance Podcast Network, I'm always on the lookout for new podcasts. Have you wondered how you could start your own podcast and what it would entail? Well, then take a listen from our sponsor, One Stone Creative.
If you are enjoying this show, you might enjoy hosting your own. As an expert in your field, you have skills, knowledge, and insight that can help you expand your practice, meet new people, and create amazing content to share with the world. In as little as 2 hours a week, you can dramatically change how you promote, fill, and position your business. And One Stone Creative can show you how. Learn more at onestonecreative.net.
In this episode, Richard Lummis and I take a look at some of our top podcasts from 2018 and where we may be going in 2019. 12 O'Clock High, a podcast on business leadership, is a part of the Compliance Podcast Network.
Hello and welcome to another episode of 12 O'Clock High, a podcast about leadership. It's Richard Lummis. I'm here with Tom Fox for another discussion on how to improve our leadership skills. We believe leadership is a skill which can be improved with study of both good and bad practices. We'll try to draw interesting examples from many sources, including history, fiction, film, and business writing. Welcome back, Tom.
Thank you, Richard.
Well, today we're just going to do a brief review of 2018, a year to which many people, I'm sure, will just be saying good riddance. What would you like to talk about, Tom? We certainly saw our share of fraud and corporate malfeasance and incompetence. And
we may have to save that for our top 5 on leadership failures, but I really, in looking back over our podcast series, 3 or 4 themes kind of jumped out at me. First of all, we did a fascinating exploration of U.S. presidential leadership, focusing largely on presidents who are not in the pantheon. Yeah. I think we went basically from John Tyler up through James Buchanan. Although I had studied those, I had not studied them in a long time. And so I was fascinated by the study of leadership and leadership failures of those presidents leading up to, of course, the tragedy of the Civil War. We saw lots of leadership failures. We saw a fair number of successes. But the thing that struck me the most was as difficult as people may think things are now, or as insane as they may think things are now, this is not the first time things have been like this. And I was very surprised to learn that actually the first president facing impeachment was John Tyler. Yeah. I had not, if I knew that, I had forgotten it. And Franklin Pierce, Millard Fillmore, Zachary Taylor, you could see the movement of history towards the inevitable, I shouldn't say inevitable, towards the Civil War, but you saw the missteps and the miscalculations that the presidents made, and that hopefully, if we're ever in that situation again, people would maybe stop and say there's a different thing or a different approach we have to take. But I was fascinated by that, particularly in light of, what's perceived to be the chaos in the current administration. That's not new. Yeah. And we've seen that other times. We had a lot of fun, I thought, with a couple or 3 podcasts around Antarctic exploration. Mm-hmm. We started off with Ernest Shackleton, and then we went to Frank Worsley, who tried to walk across this Antarctica solo effort. Unfortunately, he died in his last effort. But those were fascinating studies in leadership. We were very aware of, or at least had more awareness of Shackleton and the endurance story, mm-hmm. but he had actually attempted to walk to the pole. And we took a look at Robert Falcon Scott and Knut Amundsen, mm-hmm. I think, the Norwegian who did make it to the pole. And those were, it was really a lot of fun for me to look back at those. We had several episodes on GE. Yes. And both failures in leadership, failures of individual leaders, problems the company had engaged in, and now I think there's a much higher awareness of the problems at GE, and that those problems have been there for quite some time. But when we started that, and we started, I think back in 2016, taking a look at some of the issues around GE that at least raised our eyebrows, and we now see that maybe the emperor didn't have all his clothes on, if the emperor wasn't naked. You know, we've done this series now on leadership lessons from Oscar-winning movies, and those are always a lot of fun with me. We looked at Chariots of Fire, Platoon, Lawrence of Arabia, and The King's Speech, and those are things that it's really fun to mine those types of entertainment for leadership lessons, and I think that people really enjoy learning about things that they could put into play in their business careers or their personal careers from looking at entertainment. So, and I know we both have a lot of fun doing that.
Yeah.
So that was another series. And then there was one that I think we did in the spring where we talked about Mark Zuckerberg's testimony in front of Congress. And since that time, there have been a lot of revelations about Facebook, problems with Facebook, perhaps misrepresentations Facebook has made, if not to the American people, or rather, if not to Congress, to the American people or other regulators, kind of continued revelations, more problems in leadership from Facebook, both Zuckerberg and Sheryl Sandberg. But the testimony of Mark Zuckerberg, when he gave it, I breathed a very big sigh of relief. I did not want him humiliated in the political circus of a congressional hearing, and I thought he acquitted himself well. I was struck by not only the age difference between our elected representatives, many of whom are in their mid-80s and should not be on the public stage, and I guess Zuckerberg's now in his 30s, 30-something. Zuckerberg, and really how out of touch our leaders are.
Yeah.
Not just with you and I or their constituents, but with technology. There were questions asked about converging Facebook and Apple, and he had to say, well, that's a different company, and they make phones. And, we're an app. And that basic level of lack of knowledge by our political leaders was really struck me in that hearing in a way it had not struck me before. So that was another one that stood out. But, I hope we can continue the presidential leadership series. That one, a lot of people have told me that's a fan favorite. And I know I've had a lot of fun reviewing that part of our history that I hadn't looked at in quite some time. Were there really any things that kind of stood out that you either stood out for you or you enjoyed taking a look at?
Well, I've enjoyed the ongoing development of some of the things we've talked about. I mean, you touched on GE. There's also the Wells Fargo saga, which is another gift that keeps on giving in terms of lessons for compliance and corporate governance. I thought our things on the Astros were kind of fun, too.
Yes.
And I always enjoy the movies. I thought that was a particularly strong bunch this year in terms of lessons. I had not seen Lawrence of Arabia in several years, but it certainly, I always see something new every time I watch it. So.
Well, I can't wait to see what we come up with for 2019. So
stay tuned. Signing off for now, it's Richard Lummis and Tom Fox with 12 O'Clock High.
This is Tom Fox again. I hope you enjoyed our annual wrap-up of the prior year in 12 O'Clock High. I also hope that you checked out our podcast series on leadership based upon the book by General Stanley McChrystal and two others entitled Leaders, Myth, and Reality. It went up on the week of December 31st, and it's available on iTunes, Megaphone, and all of my other distribution channels. There's a great response to it, and check it out. It was a lot of fun doing it, and I know you'll get a lot out of it. I hope you'll continue to join us for further issues of 12 O'Clock High going forward in 2019. This is Tom Fox. 12 O'Clock High is a part of the Compliance Podcast Network.